Thank you, Madam Chair. I was pleasantly surprised to find out that a Nebraska farmer, John Holzfassner, would be among today's witnesses. I appreciate John's willingness to come to Washington to share his views and would like to offer him a warm welcome. Nebraskans certainly understand the importance of the renewable fuel standard. Our state has answered the call to invest in domestic renewable fuel production. Nebraska has 24 active ethanol plants and an annual production of 2.3 billion gallons. These plants represent more than $5 billion in capital investment in the state and provide direct employment for approximately 1,200 Nebraskans. On a national scale, the RFS is working to enhance domestic energy supplies and reduce our dependence on foreign oil. Adding more than 13 billion gallons of domestic ethanol to the U.S. fuel supply in 2012 displaced the need for 465 million barrels of foreign oil, at a savings of $47.2 billion to the U.S. economy. This is roughly the equivalent of 12% of total U.S. crude oil imports. The RFS also helps to support more than 380,000 American jobs and lower fuel prices for consumers. During the short time that the RFS has been in place, we have only become more efficient, both at production of the biofuels themselves, but also of the feedstocks for these fuels. Coming from the Cornhusker State, I'm especially proud of our farmers' ability to continually produce more while using less land, less water, and less fertilizer. Through careful stewardship of our natural resources and the adoption of innovative technologies, our farmers are able to produce an abundant supply of food, feed, and fuel in an environmentally sustainable manner. At such a time of this innovation and growth potential for the biofuels industry, it is concerning that EPA is now proposing a significant rollback in the RFS. EPA's proposal essentially waives RFS requirements beyond a 10% blend of ethanol, eliminating the incentives to invest in the infrastructure necessary to bring higher blends to the marketplace and meet the goal of future biofuels growth. Thank you, Madam Chair. At this time, I'd like to ask if I could have included in the record a letter from the Renewable Fuels Association.
Without objection.
Thank you very much. Mr. Grundler, the EPA's proposed rule establishing the RVOs for 2014. Your analysis supporting this proposal includes consideration of the availability of infrastructure in setting the volumes, and it indicates that you plan to use this same approach in your rulemakings for the next several years. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Given that infrastructure investments are motivated by anticipation of more fuel entering the marketplace, not less fuel, how do you believe that your proposal is going to incentivize the installation of the infrastructure necessary to allow for these deployment of higher blends?
In a number of ways, and of course the renewable fuel standard is more than just about one kind of fuel. It certainly is about corn-based ethanol, but the priority that the Congress said is for most of the growth in the future, it's about these advanced biofuels that we've been talking about. And with respect to, for example, ethanol from these advanced sources like cellulosic, they get their own standard, which is essentially walled off by the law. So our cellulosic standard going into the future will be based on our estimate of what can actually be produced in that next year. And as my colleague from DOE described, there's been an enormous amount of progress in terms of the technology and its efficiency and its ability to produce these higher volumes. As for the market conditions that would incentivize more infrastructure, we're seeing that today, and in fact our proposal does imagine a volume that is above the blend wall. We are anticipating more E85 being sold next year than is being sold this year, and our estimates are based on that trend line and that pace of new E85 stations being built. Now, of course, we provide a range, and we're asking for more information and data on whether or not we got that right or if we're being too conservative. I can tell you, having sat through 13 hours of public testimony last week, that we got a very wide diversity of views, and many people thought we got it wrong and that we adjusted it too far. Others told us we didn't adjust it enough, and a few people said we got it about right. So what we emphasized at the hearing is please give us updated information on sales, on infrastructure, on our assumptions, so we can make the best decision we can with that information before we go final.
Earlier in your comments to Senator Cardin, you said that the oil industry has a demand for ethanol. Could you continue then and say that there is an economic value of ethanol for the oil industry?
Oh, without a doubt. The whole petroleum industry infrastructure has optimized around this 10% blend. It does have a value in terms of enhancing the octane of the gasoline as well as a volume extender.
You also mentioned that when you talked about the blend wall, that reaching that blend wall doesn't necessarily drive up gas prices. Did I hear you correctly on that?
What I meant to say certainly is that that's a very complicated equation, and so it's not clear to me exactly what the impact would be and what the incremental marginal costs are for going above that blend wall. That's what we're trying to do in this proposal. We're trying to estimate what is the reasonable amount of higher blend ethanols that today's market and infrastructure can in fact use.
And you would, my time's up, but you would say that gas prices fluctuate on a number of inputs. I guess I would say ethanol would be a very small part of that. Would you agree with that?
I would agree. Predicting gasoline prices is treacherous, and we try to avoid it.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Madam Chairman. Of course, I'm going to be directing my questions to my fellow Nebraskans, so welcome again, John, for being here. I appreciated your comments to the chairwoman as you answered her questions with regards to the impact on rural economies, on agriculture as a whole if the RFS is changed. When we talk about higher corn prices, I'm a cattle rancher, so I certainly understand the impact of those higher prices and what they do to my industry as well. But I am fully supported of ethanol because of the good economic impact it has had on rural communities, rural states, and truly our country as a whole. With that, I would like to get your response on a couple issues that were brought up today. The RFS requires that corn and other feedstuffs used to produce renewable fuels for the RFS only be sourced from land that was already engaged in agriculture production in 2007. And feedstuffs that are grown on land converted to cropland after 2007, they don't qualify for that renewable biomass. I think that's a point that we need to reinforce here. We've heard about wetlands being plowed up. We've heard about prairies being plowed up. We've heard about the use of water when we talk about the production of ethanol. Can you specifically address land use issues and water? You know, in Nebraska, we're very fortunate that we have the Oklala Aquifer, which I'm on top of the Oklala Aquifer, as you are down in Paxton as well. Could you address those?
Sure. Under current Farm Bill, there are swamp buster, sod buster provisions that prevent me from doing any type of that conversion that's been put out there as, I would say, misinformation, as Mr. Coleman has stated. When you talk about water in Nebraska, it's a tremendous resource, one that we strive tirelessly to protect and use efficiently. We've, in agriculture, been accused of creating dirty air and dirty water, and that, in all due respect, Mr. Faber, hurts. I breathe that air, I drink that water. I love this town, but one thing I look forward to is going home and breathing that air and drinking that water. I know that it's safe. I know that it's clean, and I would have it no other way. It's who I am. It's what I am. It's where my family lives. So you know, that is painful to hear those terms put out there. It is not, that is where we are at. We want clean air and water as much as anyone else. As far as the protection of that resource, I've been farming for 27 years, and in those years, I am growing approximately 50% more corn on 50% less water. The technology and that's been available to modern agriculture has been tremendous in that efficiency, in efficient use of water.
And how much water does an ethanol plant use? What would you compare it to?
A 50 million gallon a year ethanol plant uses about as much water as a 9-hole golf course. It's a lot of water. It takes a lot of water to run a 9-hole golf course, and it does an ethanol plant as well. But that's efficient and good use of water.
Thank you. I would like to say to all of you, I appreciate you coming in. I think we have to have a balance when we talk about our energy resources and how we develop those in the future. Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam.
Thank you. I want to